Okay, everyone, welcome back into another episode of Owls on Record. I'm joined today by rising senior Jennica Terry from the Bryn Mawr track and field team. Thanks so much for joining me today, Jennica. I wanted to see if you could jump right off the bat and tell people what your major is, introduce yourself a little bit, and kind of talk about what your post-Bryn Mawr dreams or goals might be.
All right. Well, hello everyone. I'm Jennica Terry. I'm a rising senior, and my major that I'm studying is East Asian languages and culture. And my post Bryn Mawr dream as well, to get a master's in translation studies since I like to be a translator for Chinese. Um, so yeah.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what made you pick that major, and how did you kind of get into that as kind of a post-Bryn Mawr plan?
Well, since high school probably, or maybe even like as early as middle school, um, I've been interested in just East Asian culture. I think it's really interesting and it's cool to learn about, especially one of my favorite topics is about the mythology and the literature that goes into East Asian culture. So
Very cool. Is that something where you'd hope to kind of travel there one day, maybe?
I hope so after, of course, this whole COVID thing clears up. I was going to think about going abroad to China, but then COVID happened. So,
Sure. Yeah. Probably wise to let things settle down a bit before that.
yeah.
So you have been one of the premier sprinters, not just at Bryn Mawr, but in the Centennial Conference and in the region during your career as an OWL. You hold 5 different school records. You've won numerous conference championships and gold medals. Can you tell people a little bit about kind of how you got your start in track and field and running, and maybe when you knew you were fast and when you could compete collegiately and even beyond?
So I started track and field back in my freshman year in high school. Um, my dad told me that I wasn't going to go through high school without doing an after school activity, so I sort of chose track and field, and it just went from there. Um, and I have, when I first started, I wasn't as fast as I am now, obviously, because I've gotten grown up and stuff. But but even like freshman year, I was still going to regionals and even in outdoor track. I went to states as a freshman, but and I didn't make it for indoor track though. But going from there, I've always gone to states in high school. Um, and then so I'm not sure like how to like stamp down the time like when I knew I was fast because that's kind of hard to determine because I feel like it can still be better. Like I've gotten better since I've been in college. So
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I just didn't know if there was a time, I guess, when did you always kind of know you wanted to keep doing it in college? Once you picked the college, was this always kind of an aspiration to continue kind of running track?
Yes. See, when I did track in high school, it gave me the opportunity to have like a bigger circle of friends and be introduced to a whole bunch of other people from different schools. Um, like even now, I had a friend that I went to middle school with, but we didn't go to the same high school. But going into college, I've seen him at a couple of track meets. So we were able to sort of meet up on while we were waiting for our events and like talk a bit. So
That's great. Another of the kind of many disappointments that this whole pandemic situation has kind of created is that you had actually qualified for the NCAA National Championship in indoor track earlier this spring, and that was set to take place basically right when everything kind of started shutting down, and the NCAA had to kind of cancel that championship. Can you tell people a little bit about what it was like knowing you had qualified for that and you actually made it all the way down there and were there in person, and then what it was like hearing that it canceled and that whole situation.
So, um, it was cool to know that I had qualified, even though I was in the 20th spot in hurdles, and it was still undetermined. And so, Coach Hewitt was trying to get me to go to a quick turnaround into another meet to try and bring down that time, but I decided not to since it was right after conference championships. It was quite soon after, and so it was just a matter of waiting. And when I found out, I wasn't really expecting anything because I was in the last spot. Um, so it was kind of a scramble to get everything together. And I didn't even bring my uniform from campus while I was at home. So that was something. But then after finding out, um, I guess so we went there to practice on Thursday, which would have been the day before the championship started. And so I went down into the hotel lobby, and Coach Hewitt comes down, and he's got just like this a sad look on his face, and he's like, "Well, they canceled the championships." And so I was like, "Well, really?" And so it was a letdown since everybody was already on the track doing warm-ups on the track, and then the next day you find out that it's been canceled. And it was I found it was just like a waste, really. um and that all of these people came from all over um the country to compete here, and then they just cancel it. And it was hard to take that, really, and for the other people especially.
Yeah, it was definitely really unfortunate. Had there been any kind of rumblings that this kind of might start happening, that this might get canceled, or was it completely out of the blue?
um I wouldn't say it was completely out of the blue. I sort of um I kind of knew that it was a possibility, especially since at that time COVID was really on the rise. And and I just the night before and the days before, really, I was just like, well, it's a possibility that COVID might shut this down or end it early. um so I wasn't really too shocked. But I know that Coach Hewitt and Tanja were both just crushed, honestly, especially Coach Hewitt.
Yeah, it's definitely not a fun experience, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned Coach Hewitt and Tanja. They're both very very talented head coaches or coaches. What has it been like for you to kind of compete under their direction at Bryn Mawr?
It's been fun. It's also quite casual, more than I expected. I've become friends with Tanja, and then my freshman and sophomore year, I've become friends with Coach Lamar and Coach Corrigan. Sadly, they're not with us anymore, um, but yeah, it's been quite a fun experience being coached under them and having the opportunity to be friends with them. Um, so yeah.
What made you, shifting gears a little bit, what made you decide to come to Bryn Mawr?
Well, the main thing was when I was looking at colleges, was that I had to make sure that they taught Chinese, and Bryn Mawr was um, one of the choices, or one of my top three choices at the time, that actually had a full Chinese course. And that was pretty much the main reason why I chose Bryn Mawr, since that was what I was pursuing, or what I am pursuing right now. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It was really
Okay.
for the academic part.
Okay. So you're obviously a rising senior now. We've mentioned that. If you could kind of give a message to incoming first year Jenica, what's maybe one little tidbit you might tell her?
Um, I would say that that don't worry about going into college. It's not as bad as you think it was or is. Um, and that you'll have a good time. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
'cause yeah, I was nervous going into college. Like, am I gonna do well? Am I gonna be okay here? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think I'm sure that's common to pretty much everyone who goes to college. I think that's definitely a good message for first year Jenica. um, and then just to close things out, I know you kind of have an interesting summer job this year. I was hoping you could tell people what you're doing and how you got involved in that and what it's like.
Right. Well, for this summer, I had a bit of a challenge looking for a job because of the COVID situation. But my mom has suggested, who she had been suggested by a friend, um, that I should apply to be a 2020 census taker. And as you know, the government takes uh, a census every 10 years, and well, it's 2020, so time for the census. And so I submitted an application, and it wasn't until a month later that they got back to me. Um, and I had forgotten all about it, and so had my mom, and they had accepted me for this job, and then I had to do training, and and training was pretty like it was pretty simple, honestly. It was like census taking is a lot simpler than you think it would be. Like it's all on a phone that has been issued to you by the government, and you just ask they go up to a door and then ask these questions to the person. And today I actually have a shift at noon, and I would go out and take take census questionnaires for these people. So yeah.
This has got to be an interesting year to be doing census taking with the pandemic going on. Is there anything unique about that?
Yes, actually they changed or they added a few things. Like they gave us a mask to wear on the job, and we can also ask people if they're uncomfortable with doing a face-to-face interview. We can give them the option to do it over phone instead. And so that's pretty much all they had. And of course there's the standard COVID protection, like wash your hands, keep within 6 feet. So,
Sure. Well, that sounds like a really interesting experience, and I appreciate you being one of those people who's helping get the count and all the information down. So, and I also appreciate you taking the time to be on here with us. It was a lot of fun talking to you, Jenica, and we'll see what happens with the fall and the spring. But we're really looking forward to seeing you back in action next year.
all right. Well, thank you for having me on. It was fun talking with you.
All right. Thanks,
So,
Jenica.
all right. Thank you.